Welcome, Legionnaires, to the Long Live the Legion podcast, where we talk about the Legion of Superheroes comic book team and break subjects down so that whether you're just out of the Legion Academy or you're a longtime veteran, you get to know the team a little bit better. This is Jim, and I'm here with Jay, and we have a special podcast drop today to talk about the Legion of Darkseid.
Yes, and we also have a very special guest today. We are joined by one of the hosts of ABOUND, which is a podcast about individual critical episodes in comic history. His name is Logan Crowley. Did I get that introduction right? Did I miss anything?
Nailed it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us. It's always great to have different opinions and different people sharing what they think. So I'm actually going to put the focus, Logan, on you first, since we're talking about the Legion, and you are wearing tons of Superman merch as I'm looking at you on video. How did you get into the Legion?
So my dad worked in a comic shop in Dalton, Georgia, called Fantasy Factory, basically as far back as I can remember. When I was a kid, he was a pro wrestler, and then he worked there part-time, and then when he retired from wrestling, he worked there full-time. So I learned to read in a comic shop, and one of the first comics I loved to read was old Superboy comics. I got to read a lot of them out of the back issues from the 60s and the 70s, and you can't do that without having to know who the Legion is. So I found them that way.
And now I have like 50 wrestling questions as well, but we'll skip that because we have a very special focus for today's episode. We are going to talk about the Legion of Darkseid, the 3-issue storyline that just wrapped up in Superman 30. If you haven't seen Jim's articles online, he's reviewed all 3 of them, so you'll get a sense of what he's going to talk about. But let's just start really high level. Jim, what'd you think of the 3-part story?
All right, so I'm going to just go into my TLDR version of the review for number 30, which really sums up the entire 3-issue arc here. And that is, if you are reading this as a Superman fan with Superman as your main focus, you're probably going to really like this. There's actually some really cool Superman moments in here. If you're reading this as a Legion fan first, you're probably not going to come away with it with as good of a feeling. That was my sense of this. But that's being said, there's a lot to like here because I had to reframe my view of this because of the fact that I was a little bit tempted, right? Because I saw some Legionnaires that I really, really like that I haven't seen in forever with dialogue. I'm talking kinetics here. But there's only a few of these Legionnaires, and they're from all over the different versions of the Legion. And the Legion ends up with a dire fate in the story. And so because of that, I was in a little bit of a bad state in that frame of mind. But when you step back and you realize the name of this storyline is the Legion of Darkseid, obviously they're going to get more attention, right? That's kind of how that would work from a story perspective. And once I reframed myself in that way, the story and the book kind of felt better to me. Not fully better, but much better from a storytelling perspective. Interested to hear what you guys have to say. All
right, Logan, what'd you think?
I'm going to need to know how this plays out down the line.
Yep.
To know how I feel about it, because I'm a big fan of the reboot Legions and both versions of the original Legion, the original and the Jeff Johns reboot.
Yep.
And watching them get massacred, basically off camera, that's a hard pill to swallow. But I know it's a time travel story, so this could very well end with they beat Darkseid and they all hop right back up, and when we get some new comics with whatever the new version of Legion is. But if this is if this is killing all of them brutally to bring in the new Legion, I don't think that's starting the new Legion off on a great foot for longtime Legion fans. Which I can be honest, I don't think this is for longtime Legion fans, really.
For sure.
And that's the criticism for me, but it might not be for other people. But I'm just going to need to know how that plays out before I really know how I feel about this story. I loved watching the Bendis Legion get killed. That was all right. the other four were kind of hard to watch. As far as the actual content of the story, though, I thought it was pretty good. I have an ongoing complaint with Joshua Williamson that I think I would like his stories better if somebody wrote them down, like the plot points, and told me what happened. I would say, man, that sounds pretty cool. But when I'm actually reading his issues, I think he over-explains and undershows consistently throughout all of his writing. And there's a little of that there. But I do really like, from a broad sense, I like Superman and Time Travelers part of the story. I loved the Superboy Prime arc of this. It was when I first saw him come back, I was like, "This is unnecessary. Why are you doing this?" The way that they went with him, I thought was really cool.
All right, Jay, your turn.
My turn. Okay, so I think, Logan, I think your point of like, I want to see where this is going, I agree completely, because this felt like chapter 2 of a 6-chapter story, right? So we're kind of in the middle of something, and so it kind of feels, it's obviously unfinished, and it's obviously, again, we don't know where we're going with this storyline. There's some things that I thought were really, really well done. I mean, the part in the first part of the story when it's him and his mom, like Superman and his mom, and that scene I thought was epically great. If I have to see another comic where there's a bunch of dead Legionnaires and a bunch of dead Colossal Boy skeletons, I'm going to throw something. I hate the fact that the Legion has just become cannon fodder for every big DC story. They're better than that. They're more important than that. Like, I can't imagine, like, honestly, I don't think there's a super team that's been treated this way by any comic company. Like, I don't think Marvel has like, hey, let's kill 50 X-Men every single big crossover we do, just for the heck of it. And then
or the Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard is what we want to say.
So, or the Imperial Guard. Yeah, the Imperial Guard got their own series.
I know.
I'm fascinated by how they've set up Saturn Girl in this, because I think she's the third most important character of this story, and they've really established her as like a heavy hitter. Unfortunately, they've established her.
She's the queen
bee. Yeah,
bee.
like as a villain. But if they can carry this on, I'm loving that, because I mean, look, we did 2 episodes on Saturn Girl. It's no secret that she's one of my favorites. So seeing her at her absolute peak has been a blast. I have a different take on Superboy Prime, which is, I loved when Ambush Bug broke the fourth wall, because it was all played for comedy, and it was this completely minor character, and so it didn't have an effect on anything. And then when John Byrne did it with She-Hulk, I was like, cool, this is great, because again, she wasn't a major character, and she wasn't breaking Marvel. Then Deadpool basically ripped off Ambush Bug, sorry. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Every single wink to the audience was just took me out of the story. Like the one line, it's like, this is going to piss off Dan Jurgens or whatever that line was. And I'm just like, okay, ha ha ha. Like, we get it. And I've always seen Superboy Prime as a real like FU to the comic book fan. Cause he's kind of like, he's a fan who grew up loving these comics. There's that scene where he's reading everything and you can tell he loves Superman. And then he becomes like everything that you just hate out of a comic book fan. Only he gets to play in this backyard, and there's no consequences. He does whatever he wants. And as much as I love to see Superboy flying off with the Legion at the end and saying, long live the Legion, it's the wrong Superboy, and you kind of needed more Legionnaires. So I'm like, again, there's some real great strengths to this, and there's just some parts that just didn't hit.
I agree with both of you guys in different ways, right? So I've kind of the same take on Superboy Prime. He's not my favorite cup of tea, mainly because every time he interacts with the Legion, he kind of steals all the air in the room. You know, he's the yeah. So like in Legion of Three Worlds, right? This is a story where Legion is they're the central characters in the name. Sorry, Jake, because I know you're about to read this soon. He kind of takes over, right, as from a center perspective. And it's like, okay, all right, whatever. And he also killed Kinetics in that story. Sorry, again, Jay, spoilers. So I have my problems with him in this way, right? But so I wasn't thrilled to see him, and for the same reasons, I don't like his fourth wall antics.
I have those same problems with Superboy Prime, and I actually get to talk about this with Legion, which I never do. I have a theory, because Marv Wolfman has grumbled how the Legion office messed with the story for Crisis,
right,
originally in '86, and he says a lot in interviews. My number one problem with Superboy Prime starts in '86, which is I think that was supposed to be Legion Superboy, and it was supposed to be Golden Age Superman and Legion Superboy fighting at the end, and then they go, and that they had already drawn those pages, because George Perez is a famously incredible but slow artist.
Right.
And so Superboy Prime was something they had to pull out of their ass to justify pages they had already seen. Is it okay to swear?
Well, yeah, that's fine. You can say that.
Okay. Yeah. I'll try to reel it in.
Yeah.
So I've always had that since I first read those Mark Wolfman interviews, and even as a kid, I didn't understand. I read Crisis for the first time probably in 98 or 99. And even as a kid, I was like, why isn't this Superboy, like the real Superboy, instead of the cosplayer? But I thought his turn in Infinite Crisis was interesting just because of the power imbalance. But I agree with you, the Deadpool fourth wall break, especially in, like, I grew up fast, right? You guys know how a fat kid will sometimes make a fat joke real fast before anybody else can make one? That's what it felt like in this story, was Joshua Williamson had Superboy Prime making fat jokes about plot points that people weren't going to like real fast before anybody else could make them. Most notably when he basically lays out a Legion story that I frankly would have rather read. Yeah. And then you turn the page and it's just devastation. Graveyard. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic point. And then I also agree with the other thing that you said, Logan, about, and I think you did too, Jay, about just the fact that this concept of a nerfed Legion, right, is just, come on, guys. I mean, again, this is where I came back to the whole thing of the Legion of Darkseid are the antagonists in the story. They're the bad guys. And they're a Legion they're an anti-Legion. They're a Legion with no conscience, no sense of morals. So they will fight dirty and they will do whatever, right? So I get it. But when you're fighting 4 Legions, especially when those 4 Legions are able to capture a Brainiac, it just doesn't really fit right for me. As interesting as it is from a thought experiment perspective to see what each of the Legionnaires would do without any morals to win whatever battle they had to win. It just doesn't seem like that this Legion would these other 4 Legions combined would do that. Now, I would like to shift a little bit because we talk about 4 Legions, right? We have, like you mentioned, there is the retro/classic, there's the 3-boot, there's the post-Zero Hour reboot, and the Bendis, however we want to call that, 7-boot, or whatever we want to call it, Rebirth, whatever. Fans will remember that a few years ago in Flashpoint Beyond, there was an infamous chalkboard. And behind Batman is a phrase that says, Legion of 4 Worlds and War of the Legions. I'm postulating here that this, whatever happened here, is what was referred to on that chalkboard.
I mean, I think it would happen.
I think so too, but we haven't heard any confirmation yet, so that's what I'm wondering.
So it kind of brings to two of my problems with this is, like you say, like the Legion are the villains of the story, but they kind of aren't, because we don't really see them do anything. Like you said, like they talk about this big fight, but they don't actually show it. And really the only villain that they have is Saturn Girl, and because everything in issue 28 is in Superman's mind. So she doesn't actually do anything to anybody. And then in the next issue, we don't see anything. And then Superboy Prime does the big switch where he's like, oh, I'm actually I'm going to join the villains. But then that's even thrown away. And okay, so they all take turns beating up Superman, but it's kind of the secondary issue. Like the focus is all on Superboy Prime. And so there's even one panel where I'm sitting there going like, okay, I have no idea who's beating up Superman at this point, but apparently he's getting beaten up because the focus is all Superboy Prime giving his big speech. And so to me, like, I would say, like, are they the villains of the story? Like, is this, like, because at the end of the day, you kind of keep going back to they're not the focus of anything.
No, well, the Darkseid Legion, I think they are, from a definition, they are literally the antagonist of the story, right? Because they're blocking the way of the hero, and pushing against the hero. So yes, but to your point, it's just kind of, toying, I think, to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't get any of the moments that you wanted to see. Like, I want to see Superman face off against his former friends. We don't get that. I want to see, it's like you say, I would have liked to have seen the battle between the 4 legions, even if it would have pissed me off to watch a Darkseid's Legion killing some of my favorite characters, but at least you would have seen it. You don't get any of that. Instead, we get, Superboy Prime cracking jokes. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why. It would have been so easy if you're going to write it on camera anyway, to just say that Darkseid's Legion took the other legions out one at a time, right? Mm-hmm. Because maybe it could beat each of them in a fair fight, but it feels very strange to have them beat all 4 legions at once. Brought up, I like the Martha Kent scene, but you brought up that Saturn Girl has him locked in this illusion in the first issue. And that was something, when I got to the end, I found that very frustrating because I think one of the big problems with this series is that they just don't have enough pages for how much story they need to tell between here and KO. And so I'll give them some grace for that. But if that's the problem, why did we waste 6 pages on an illusion that didn't happen? You know, like if this is your chief issue, then they're also not being very economical to try and get around.
So this is a good question. This is perfect segue, Logan, because I wanted to ask you guys this. Based on what you just said, Logan, plus the beginning of the 3rd issue where we kind of see the origin of this Legion, do you guys think that this Saturn Girl is basically running the show and literally mind controlling everybody?
I wish I thought that, but no. I think it's a lot like Dark Crisis, where Williamson likes to have characters in there, but he tends to pick 1 or 2 characters, and they're the only ones that talk in his story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is probably more likely. But I would love, if somebody wanted to no prize that in to continuity, I think that would actually make how I feel about this story a lot better, because there's some of these characters that I just think, you know, I might sit down if I was feeling critical and want to go, well, why is Karate Kid evil? Why is each one evil? And if Saturn Girl had them all in remote control, that would wave a lot of that away.
Well, we'll get to Karate Kid later.
Yeah.
So, Jay, what do you think about the whole Saturn Girl being the mind controller of everybody on the team?
I think the moment where she broke out of prison and got help from somebody her planet had been at war with for like decades shows she wasn't in control. Because why would she take on his offer? And to be honest, if we're going to believe that Darkseid is spreading his influence everywhere, then it would make sense that she doesn't need to control them. And also, like, you don't need to, with the Legion, to like overpower one of them. Like, I think you could just say, like, here's a bunch of people who are pissed off for a variety of different reasons, and they've gone down this different path. Now, I agree, like, why would Karate Kid turn evil? Well, yeah, I mean, that's an easy one. He follows his dad into crime, and then there's, you know, I mean, and like, there's so many different ways in Legion lore that you can just take them that other path. And I don't think you need to say, like, all right, Saturn Girl's essentially Universo at this. And then if you're going to do that, then just have Universo. Or then,
yeah, no, true. Yeah. Right? I mean, because my only thinking to it was, you know, why take your mortal enemy who's a prisoner and why, and you know, bring him into a cause, you know, when you hate this person.
Yeah.
And then there was all the other pieces throughout the issue where Saturn Girl is saying, be a deer and do this for me. To several characters, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of strange, but anyway, so so let's talk about Karate Kid now. That was, I have to say, that little interlude, I was kind of like, why is this here? Why is Karate Kid? Why is the section here? Why is Luther in the middle of nowhere? Why is Karate Kid coming out of nowhere to attack him? And why is Luther able to kill Karate Kid? In that order were my WTF moments.
Karate Kid's one of my favorites. Like, if I'm excluding Superboy and ranking favorite Legionnaires, him and Mon-El are neck and neck.
Okay.
So that one hurt me bad, but I did look back, and though I'm sure that's supposed to be Karate Kid, they don't actually say it. So I'm clinging to, like, Darkseid's Legion recruited Tim, you know? And in other Legion comics, we've never seen Tim before because he's not that effective. But in this issue, this is the first appearance of Tim and last appearance of Tim. That's what I'm kind of clinging to.
Is it Tim from the Monty Python movies? Is that what?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, look. So when have DC Comics used Karate Kid properly since Levitz? Yeah, like, I mean, like, I'm with you, Logan. Karate Kid's one of my favorite Legionnaires, and I'm probably annoyingly protective of him when I see him, and I'm just like, no, you got it wrong. No, you got it wrong. No, you got it wrong. Like, this was just like, so I'm reading this in my mind, I'm just like, this can't be Karate Kid because it's Lex freaking Luthor, and this shouldn't be happening. And I don't know, I get the sense that with every Legion story, the Legion exists only in what does the writer need them to be able to do, not what is the character actually able to do. So in the case of this, we wanted to have a fight where we show how tough Lex Luthor is. So let's have him go up against a guy who, in another story, beat Batman. That's like, and I kind of sit there and Yeah, and that's and to me, that's the great comedy about Karate Kid is you have, like, I just finished the rereads of, Lightning Saga and then the Horrible Countdown and then the Action Comic story. And you go from Karate Kid face to face with Batman and basically beating him until Black Lightning interferes to sleepwalking through Countdown and doing nothing. And you're like, okay, what was the point? And then this one, you're like, okay, well, I kind of just give up, right? It's the same thing. Like, I guess I'm just glad they didn't kill Colossal Boy 4 times instead of 3, because he kind of exists just like he actually got a shot in at Superman, and it just seems like the writer's like, I just need this bit. I need this moment.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to make sense. And also, I hate to say this, who's he going to piss off? Like, how many Karate Kid fans are there who are actually going to read this and go, nope, this is wrong?
Yeah. I mean, I think somebody...
Well, at least 2.
Oh.
Yeah. They don't care about me.
Somebody on Reddit or somebody on Discord basically said maybe this is an homage to Keith Giffen, because he would always kill Karate Kid off all so many times. But one of the things I did notice to your point, Logan, and I think you have something there, because even though the aesthetic of this attacker kind of seems like it's a Darkseid Karate Kid, we never do see a Legion ring. Right, so there's that. Even though the rest of his outfit looks like it, it kind of matches up with some of the aesthetics from the Darkseid Legion. So it could be just Tim from the future.
Playing into I'm sure.
Yeah. No, you know who it is? It's Devron. It's Devron from the Science Police, and that's what I'm going to go with. Yeah.
No, it's Mig. It's Mig. It's Mig. That's who it is.
I had to say, what's the second? I haven't read along with it. Second Karate Kid's name?
Yeah, that's Mig.
Mig
is the
okay,
second.
That'll be my headcanon. This is the replacement Karate Kid.
So,
all right. So let's talk about. Let's talk a little bit about Booster Gold, because he's kind of the MacGuffin here in the story, right? With regards to why all this is happening, right? Booster has some weird chronal stuff in his blood, and so they're going to sacrifice him to open the gate and do whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure what the whole point was supposed to be exactly, because Element Lad is able to open the portal just fine that Superman uses, so I don't know what the blood was going to actually do to help kill everything else, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I liked this comic a lot more before we started talking about it.
I mean, I will say, can you imagine this, right? We're talking about how Imra is a badass from a Darkseid perspective. Can you just Element Lad as a completely evil dude? We thought, in Legion Lost, right? He's kind of this weird mad god kind of guy, right? In here, he's like seriously just evil.
Have you read Mark Waid's new issue of Justice League yet?
No.
Not the Justice League Unlimited? Not the one that just released, because I didn't get that on the newsstands.
Okay, I should have.
You can spoil away. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, this version of the Darkseid Lightning Lad goes off on a team in that issue of Power Girl and Captain Atom and just absolutely decimates.
Oh.
Not Lightning Lad, Element. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
And actually grabs Captain Atom and turns everything in him and just absolutely clobbers 5 of them and then jumps through a portal.
Oh, wow.
It's really good, and it ties in with this.
Okay.
Like, that issue,
next issue, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, that issue and this and the one that we're covering for this 30 end on the same page.
Okay.
Superman and so that
that means I have to buy more.
Just from Mark Waid.
I have to buy another copy.
I know. I gotta go back to the damn store now. Damn it.
So teasing. Sorry. To answer your question about Booster Gold, to go back to that and the MacGuffin and everything else, and so many points. We'll just go with that. Element Lad should be one of the most powerful Legionnaires, and every time a writer misses on that, it just kind of irritates me. Like, as soon as you think about, but it's the same. Like, as soon as you think about these powers as what these powers can actually do, it was like one of my favorite bits of 3-Boot, which admittedly is a incredibly short list, was when they were talking about like how great Starboy and Lightlass would be if you really thought about their powers. And same with this, if you really think about Element Lad, like he should be able to destroy Superman in like 5 seconds. Like, I just turned your heart to kryptonite. Done. Story's over. Like it should be that,
Well, think about, it's a tried and true comic book rule. You get to be 5 times as powerful if you turn evil. But think about how terrifying the Progenitor was.
Yeah.
In Legion Lost. I mean, there's really nothing stopping him from doing stuff like that all the time.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So It really makes you wonder what his agenda is here, right? Yeah.
So for the Booster Gold thing, I remember buying the Booster Gold comics when they first came out in the late 80s just to make myself feel older. So every time I see him show up, I have a little laugh because I can't believe that he has become this critic. Like, I think there's lines in this where they're like, he's one of the most important superheroes ever. And I'm like, yeah, I remember the Dan Jurgens comic and I remember Justice League America, and the fact that he's somehow become, like this critically important character. So I didn't mind it. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's kind of that we had to keep him alive for X amount of time, and he's the guy. I'm like, cool, okay, I'm gonna buy that. And again, like we said very early on in this is chapter 2 of this long story, so I'm sure they're gonna do more with this. So yeah, I was good with that. So, and it's always funny to see him, to be honest. Like, I kind of still, yeah.
I wouldn't call myself a fan, but I don't not like Booster Gold. It's like I'm fine if he's around. You know what I mean? I was endeared with him. I guess I can't remember which Justice League book it was, but there's a great frame where he's meeting with a bunch of kids and they want a selfie, and he says, "Say Guy Gardner sucks," and that's their cheese moment. So that's always fun.
Yeah,
I did feel like when he at the end of the All In special, when he ends up in this world, I really expected there was going to be more to this. I thought he might get his own miniseries or something. I was disappointed throughout this that he basically isn't any different than like the Infinity Gauntlet or the Cosmic Cube. He just happens to talk in these 3 issues. But he doesn't get any offense. He doesn't make any decisions for himself.
There's no agency.
Yeah, he's just constantly getting, Superman will free him and he'll run a few steps and then somebody else will thump him over the head. And then that goes back and forth for, however many 3 issues.
Yeah.
I was disappointed.
And Superman is the one who tosses him into the time portal. He doesn't even do it on himself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think it's like we said, like you said, very, very early on. Like, Superboy Prime is sucking the air out of the room at almost every moment of this story, and you're either with it and you're like, this is cool, I'm enjoying this, or you're just like, I'd like to see more. I mean, it's a great point. Like, yeah, Booster Gold kind of is just there, and he's just kind of an object to be tossed, and he's just somebody to be saved, and you kind of wish there was more, right? Like, it's really 3 issues about 3 people. Like, at the end of the day, you get the Superman focus, you get the Superboy Prime focus, and you get the Saturn Girl focus. And if you want anything from anybody else, you're not going to be happy.
I mean, think about it. I was noting this for taking some other notes for something else. We still haven't seen all of the members of this Darkseid Legion yet, right? It's like we see dribs and drabs here and there. We saw that big splash about a year ago, right? When they had the All-In special, when we saw them coming. And since then, there have been a couple appearances here and there. Mainly, it's the main trio of Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, and Cosmic Boy. Here and there, we get others here and there. We saw Shadow Lass in a Dark Justice League special, but this is the only one that we've really seen everybody again, or most everybody again, and we're still not seeing everybody because I think in issue 2 or 3, I can't remember which, there is a new character who I think is supposed to be Lightning Lass. I don't know. Because we don't get to see her that closely or very close. There's still a lot of others in the background, right? Yeah, I mean, so we still haven't seen everybody. I'm really, if this is as devastating a Legion as we're led to believe, I want to see more of them, honestly. I want to see them I want to see how they're bringing these other characters to light, because honestly, I really like Dan Mora's designs for a lot of these. They're really good.
Although I can't figure out... Yeah, sorry, Logan.
But I think the art is incredible. I think it's something that's consistently these 3 issues.
100%. I still can't figure out why Polar Boy still doesn't have a regular arm, but that was my only quibble with the designs. I'm like, come on, if Lightning Lad has his arm back, you should be fine.
Well, well, to your point, Jay, right? One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting. There's some interesting little context here, and this is from issue 2, when Superman and Superboy Prime meet the Legion survivors, and Polar Boy is obviously very pissed off, as he should be, right? Because I think the last time these all met was in the Legion of the Three Worlds, right? Which was, there was a lot of death in that story. And so that made sense. But what I also thought, what was very, very funny, but they didn't really take it to where they needed it to go, in my opinion, was the fact that Superboy Prime in the other story, disintegrates terraform kinetics. And in here, we have kinetics as one of the survivors. I thought there would have been a good little moment of, hey, you killed me, you jerk, or something like that. But it is what it is. Missed opportunities, I guess. But I thought that was kind of a neat little moment. Anyway, that aside, to your point of the character designs and Dan Mora's art, and I've gone on for hours probably on how much I think Dan Mora is an awesome artist. There are some awesome moments in here. So the moment in issue 2 where it's Cosmic Boy carrying around a shovel saying, hey, we need to bury our dead, and then Prime is like, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense, and then he transforms into the evil Chameleon Boy. Awesome. Very, very awesome moment.
Well, and when he turns his head into the classic Chameleon Boy to stop Superman from hitting him, I thought that not only was it a cool moment character-wise, but it just shows what an incredible artist Dan Mora is, because it was perfectly executed. You knew exactly what you were looking at as soon as you saw it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. I mean, we've been kind of dogging these 3 issues for a bit, but like these are 3 beautiful issues. I mean, they're dark and there's a lot of death, but they're amazing to look at, and the designs are top notch. I mean, I love the 5 Brainiacs, and you could kind of tell which each Brainiac was from each version, and you're like, okay, that's this one, and
they acted like they were supposed to act.
Yeah.
For their version.
You know, I mean, he got Kinetic's old costume right, and it's just firing on all cylinders, and it's, you know, I mean, he's getting, you know, Superman's confusion and Superman's kind of breakdowns. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. So, but that's not a shock. It's Dan Mora. Like It
was nice too on the subject of Brainiac. I love Brainiac 5, but my favorite Brainiac 5 is the reboot Brainiac 5.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice. I wish more Legionnaires had gotten good deaths in this, but it was nice that they stopped and gave him a moment to have a good, you know, a good send-off. I did appreciate that. I just wish it had been a little more evenly distributed, but I felt like that actually was a good send-off for that character, because he was so excited about history, and he didn't have the Superboy connection in the reboot Legion, so there's a little bit of a plot hole there. But he was always the one going off about superhero history with Cosmic Boy in the reboot stuff. So I thought it was cool to see, for him to have that moment of, well, I got to go out with Superman. So
thank you for saying that, Logan, because one of the things that I was wondering, and Jay, you haven't watched this yet, because a few episodes ago we did an episode on the animated series from 2006. 2007. Beginning of the second season, there is this scene on the very, very beginning of the second season where Brainiac 5 is in the simulation, where he dies in Superman's arms, right, as part of the simulation. Yeah, and so I have wondered if that moment was an homage to that moment in the animated series. So I'm curious about that.
I've only seen the first season of that cartoon, so I have no idea. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's the second season. It's very different in tone, but it begins with literally that moment.
Wow!
And now it's been spoiled for both of us. So thank you.
Congratulations. I'm a bad person.
All right. So I think we could probably rant about this for a little while, but we want to wrap this up. I'm going to say this, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. This reminded me a lot of the Action Comics Legion Superman storyline that I just finished doing the rereads on, in that it's a really good story and it looks great and the art is beautiful. And if you think about it for more than 10 minutes, you're going to start getting these massive plot holes that might drive you nuts. But if you go along with the ride and you understand it's a Superman comic first and foremost, and it's a Legion comic third or fourth you're going to have a good time and you're going to enjoy. I mean, you said it, Jim, right at the very beginning. And it really felt, and I think, Logan, you said a great thing, which is very true. It needed maybe 2 more issues, 3. Like it needed, and I mean, we always complain about padding stories, but this was a story that needed some more stuff. Like, we wanted to see more of Darkseid's Legion. We wanted to see more of the battle between and they could have done it even with just a few extra pages. But all in all, like, for all the criticisms that I've now leveled against it, I still think it's worth reading, and I still think it's worth checking out. And I'm hoping this is going to take us in a, best case scenario is this results in a new Legion with a new book, and I can see the steps that they're taking to get there. I just wish, like I say, I just wish they didn't have to murder every Legionnaire to get there. Wrap up thoughts, Logan?
I feel very similarly, and one thing I do like about Joshua Williamson that is consistent throughout his work is usually when he finishes a story where he brings a character back, what he has done is found some way to finagle all of that character's history into canon, right? He's really big on that. I'm maybe grasping at straws. We could come back in a year, and I just hate this. But I really think, but one thing I will say, because I kicked him a lot in this episode too, one thing I will say I like about his work is he tends to leave characters in a better place than where he picks them up. And so I'm really hoping that he has a bigger plan that's going to lead to us having an intact Legion with a lot of these histories that we know of as the Legion somehow intertwined. And that probably raises this story 2 stars for me over what it is if that doesn't happen.
I think that's a great point, Logan, and I agree with both of you guys. I think the thing that's been frustrating to me about this whole all-in adventure, in the main DCU, not the absolute stuff, because that seems to be its own separate thing that, based on a couple panels that we had in the 3rd issue, looks like there's going to be some kind of a tie-in there, but because we see Absolute Superman. But from the DCU perspective, it feels like this is just taking too long. It's and I've had this complaint for many years. I mean, when we talk about the DNA Legion, I had the same criticism where it takes them too long to resolve a particular plot point, and then by that point nobody cares. So this is one of the things that they're making. I think they're doing a little bit better job across all these stories from an all-in perspective, but still it's like, okay guys, come on, tick-tock. I want to see how this is going to resolve itself, and I want to see a Legion back, damn it.
Let me ask you guys, because you're the guys who would know. Have Mon-El or Ultra Boy Darkseid Legion versions showed up at all yet?
Oh my God, yeah. So you see Ultra Boy in issue number 3. Here, there's a scene. There's one panel where you see Superman being held. I believe it's with it's Ultra Boy on one side, and then Phantom Girl, I believe, on the other. I'm not exactly sure who that other Legionnaire is, because they never really say. But it's not Violet, and it's not Shadowlass. As for Mon-El, oh yes. Let me pull up my DC app real quick.
Okay, I see that's Ultra Boy now. I didn't pick up on that the first time through.
Well, it's really tough with them because there's no immediate signifier of like that. And it's a good guess on Phantom Girl. I just don't know how Phantom Girl is holding back Superman.
Yeah.
But you kind of don't know who it could be. And I think it's Mon-El earlier beaten Superman down as well. Like, I think they're both...
Possibly, but you see for sure, Absolute or Darkseid Mon-El at the beginning of JLU number 9. I'm sorry, JLU number 10, where he basically rams right through the time trapper and leaves an Omega shape through his chest.
Okay, I do remember that.
Yeah. So, and I was like, holy shit. I saw that moment. I'm like, my God. And by the way, bonus design points from an awesomeness level on the Absolute version of Sunboy, who is completely badass and looks the way that I think he always should, which is like a Johnny Storm kind of character.
They all look great. And the way that the kind of Darkseid skin is incorporated into their design, which really makes it feel like at an organic level he has dug into them. I have nothing bad to say about the art in this.
Not at all.
I even, like, in the past, I've criticized Dan Mora's Superman is a little skinnier than I want Superman to be, and since he has taken over this run, even that is gone.
Yeah.
So,
to me, it's very funny how we're now in an era of DC where we're criticizing the story and we have nothing bad to say about the art, whereas for most of DC history, it's always been the exact opposite. It's like, story's awesome, but couldn't they have hired? So now I'm going to get a bunch of emails and messages ripping me apart for that one. But it's like, what was it? Trying to recommend Animal Man, the original Grant Morrison stuff. And I'm like, I like Chaz Trogg's art, but it's got to grow on you, and it's not something that, and the story kind of takes over. Anyways, moving on.
So I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. This is usually a short episode for us when we have these special drops, but we did cover two issues here.
Yeah.
So let's kind of wrap her up. Logan, where can we find you online and in the internets?
So Single Bound is on Spotify and YouTube, but it is much more on Spotify than it is on YouTube.
Okay.
We're slow going on the video side of that, but every episode is on Spotify to listen to, and we would love for you to send us a message at singleboundpodcast@gmail.com. If you are all the time listening to podcasts and you send in suggestions and they don't respond, this is your moment. We have had 2 suggestions so far. They have both become episodes. You will get right over the plate if you start right now, I promise.
Awesome. Okay, Jay, where can we find you?
So you can find my columns at jmlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com. You can find me on Blue Sky at jmckiernan.bsky.social. You can find me on Reddit or on Discord at Drake Burrows, which is, should I be happy I haven't seen the evil version of Wildfire yet in this story?
Yet.
Fingers crossed. That's it. Jim, where can they find you?
So I have my Legion Reviews website at jimboslegion.blogspot.com, where I try to post one new comic a week that is somehow Legion related, which I did for this last issue here of issue 30 that we're talking about. And you can find me personally on Blue Sky at jimbofett.bsky.social, on Reddit at jimbofett87, and on Discord as jimbofett on the Legion Fan Club Discord. If you want to follow the podcast or get access to the Legion Discord, we are at longlivethelegion.bsky.social, or send us an email and tell us what you think at longlivethelegion2025@gmail.com. And until then, long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion.
Are you tired of watching your beloved characters being tortured by careless authors?
Are you sick of feeling like they could have swapped out all of the painful action and the plot would remain untouched? Subscribe to Books That Burn, the fortnightly book review podcast focusing on fictional depictions of trauma.
We assume that the characters' reactions are reasonable and focus on how badly or well they were served by their authors.
Join us for our minor character spotlights, main character discussions, and favorite non-traumatic things in the dark books we love.
Find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.